order. The purpose of this meeting is the off-leash dog park. 6:15, March 8th, 2011, in the caucus room, 3rd floor, City Hall. We have myself, Mary Teicholtz, committee members, Councilman Jack Knapp, Councilman Peter Nero, Robin Edwards, Corporation Counsel, Director of Public Works, Antonio Iadarola, Director of Parks and Rec, Nika Planis, Petitioner Joe Cava, Director of Planning Dennis Alpern, ex officio members, Greg Seabury and Fred Visconti. So I guess the best way to start is by opening the floor up to our petitioner and hear why and what his ideas are. This is a fact-finding meeting, so please, Councilman Cava.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you for the opportunity. Members of the committee, I thank you for indulging me tonight. Members of our city departments, thank you for being here. As you know, in the previous council meeting, in February's council meeting, I had made a request for an off-leash dog park based on some requests from constituents as well as my own desire and my own frequency of an off-leash dog park and the benefits that I think that it provides to both the dogs and the people that attend. It just seems to be a great social arena for people to recreate in just a different way than what we normally do in our parks and in our park areas here in the city. So I just briefly read through what Mr. Alpern had just given us tonight, and I couldn't agree more. Some of those things are some of the areas that I have talked about and I have spoken about with people that, I think our hardest thing to do is going to be to select a site. I think as far as all the other issues that pertain to a dog park are going to fall into place once a site is selected, once we have an area we know. Because I think once we have the area, we know the size, we'll know the containment that's needed, the cost that's going to be involved in the fencing around it. I know Mr. Visconti mentioned before the meeting that Southbury has a really nice dog park, and I agree. I love Southbury's dog park. The problem with Southbury is that it's not fenced in on all four sides, and dogs can escape. The other problem with Southbury that I see as a dog owner is the stream that runs through. I do not like the dog going into the water and getting wet, and some people love it. Some people have dogs that are born for water. And I think labs, Mr. Seabury will probably tell you, labs are born for water, but not every dog is. And when I sit back and I view it from my own standpoint, and what I'd like to see is, I think water tends to become just a mess issue, and I think being in areas around water just tend to create other problems. And that would be my preference, to not see a park that had a pond or a river in it, but more just an ability for dogs to get drinking water, fresh, potable drinking water. And, so I see us as working on a parcel of land, and then probably, just expanding from there. There's an abundance of, as you saw Mr. Alpern hand out, and as I'm sure some of you have gone and looked online already about dog parks, there's an abundance of material about rules and regulations, and I think that's going to be the easy part for this committee to sit and talk about for what rules would be, and it would be in conjunction with Mr. Kaplanis and the Parks Department here in the city of Danbury. For the rules and regulations, but I think what we should really try to do, what I'd like to see us do, and it mostly revolves around cost. Right now, in this economic climate, I don't see us spending a ton of money on creating a dog park. What I'd like to see us do is find a piece of city-owned property that we can, with very minimal cost, put a fence around for now that has all the basic needs that a park would have to expand into the future. A playscape, sitting areas, and areas for people to sit at picnic tables and have picnic tables added, and just the amenities that come with this. But right now, for cost, I'd love to see us try to find a parcel of land that would suit our needs, size-wise, that would be flat, level, because I don't know if any of you have ever seen Ridgefields. Ridgefields Park is on a hill, and it poses all kinds of problems Right now, the hill is snow covered, so now people can't, without taking their life in their hands, go down that hill to pick up anything that the dog leaves as a present for the owner, without taking their life in their hands down the snow covered embankment. So I'd like to see a flat piece of property. I'd like to see a dry piece of property. You know, the mayor and I have had some great discussions about this. He's a dog owner as well, and he's been fully supportive of this idea. And I would like to see us just come up with something that we can expand into, something that we can start off with very low cost, and then maybe as times change and things change for us financially, we can expand out into with greater amenities for the public and for the dogs that use it. So there's my view of it, and I'm glad we're all here because we've got a lot of great minds in this room, and I'm anxious to see what we hear from other people. So thank you.
I don't even know where to go. Sure,
May I?
Councilman Neerons, of course.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that we try to find a piece of land, and that's the end of the meeting. Because I think, and I know that may sound funny, but I mean, I think Councilman Cabo put it beautifully. I mean, he summed the whole thing up, and I think the first step is to find a piece of land. I think most people are concerned about cost and liability. And by the way, this is a great document. I only scanned it, but boy, this is really thorough. But to me, it seems like the first step is find a piece of land, and then see how everything falls into place. And I know that, you know, I didn't mean that to be too lighthearted about the motion, Madam Chairwoman, but my point is that I think you just did the best possible job summing the whole thing up. So I'm done.
If I could, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Joe, sticking to that point, because that's obviously the main crux we got right out of the gate, let's talk about what you think the best plan of attack would be for us to find that parcel of land, and not to mention, we've already spoken, you and I, candidly, about several different locations. Let's get that on the record here and talk about what's out there, what you've already looked into, so that we can all yay, nay, gee, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea.
Okay. Well, one of the things through the chairperson I'd like to say is I think the reason why in my letter I requested Nick Kaplanis, our Director of Parks, and Dennis Alpern, our Planning Director, would be that maybe they would have a suggestion, knowing the city as they do, of a parcel of land that we can use. Now, I had a candid discussion with Bill Montgomery from the Danbury Land Trust, and Bill had suggested that we talked about two different parcels. I originally had one parcel in my mind I thought was perfect, but in my early discussions with David Day and Jack Kojahowski, who's the city's environmental consultant, the property they don't think is going to work very well, and maybe Nick and Antonio and Dennis can put their heads together and tell us officially if that parcel is out. But there's a little park. It used to be a Girl Scout camp right next to the Vespucci, right on the border of Kenosha, that is not being used anymore as a Girl Scout camp. But David Day and Jack Kojahowski had some concerns about its change of use with the State Department of Health because of its location and its relevance to the Kenosha reservoir. And David and I had some discussion about that. David thinks that it would be monumental to change the use of that parcel for a dog park, only because of the reservoir. In my conversations with Jack Kojahowski, he had mentioned something about, you know, trenching and putting a membrane in between the water and the park at some point. But then again, it runs into cost, and it runs this thing up. My conversations with Bill Montgomery turned out two parcels. One is a parcel of property, city-owned property, up off of Chambers Road. They call it
Dreiska?
Dreiska.
Oh, the Dreiska.
Yep. That is one possible suggestion. And I honestly, I don't know these properties, and that's why I'm glad you're both here, because you can tell us probably more about them. And then the other parcel was a piece, one of the meadows at Bear Mountain. And I know that Bear Mountain has been an issue of some concern with dogs off leash, people bringing dogs up there off leash. I know I've gotten some constituent complaints about people being, you know, feeling uncomfortable with people up there with dogs off leash. And I know the city has an ordinance currently that you can't have any dog in a park off leash currently.
Yes.
So I know that they're trying to enforce that up there at Bear Mountain, and this might be one way to alleviate that is if there's a park. But that's something that Ms. Elburn and Clarence, you're gonna have to tell us whether you think those parcels have any, possible use for this. Or if there's any parcels that you know of that you might think be served better.
Well, I think Nick's the expert on that, but I think
Well,
this is called passing.
Look, that's fine.
But if it's going to be like Bear Mountain, you're going to have to fence it in.
My thought from when I first came on this job 4 years ago, and I had numerous calls, inquiring about dog parks, was what was called Camp Thunderbird over in Kenosha. To me, it's a piece of property that needs some work, but it has parking. It's not centrally located, but it's a well-traveled area. But I've heard the same thing about DEP approvals and so on and so forth. Now, if a dog park is being run, people are caring for their dogs the way they're supposed to, I don't see this waste issue as being something that is going to contaminate the reservoir. Quite honestly, people bring their dogs to Kenosha. We have 4 soccer fields, and they run around there, year round, off leash in many cases. And so again, I don't know that that's something that we can't overcome from the state standpoint or DEP or whoever would put a stop to it. Without taking that off the table, the Dreiska property, is just an undeveloped piece of open space. I don't know, other than from the King Street Primary School, I'm not sure where you access it. Maybe it's off of Chambers Road. Again, not a centrally located piece of property. And Bear Mountain, same thing. You're going to far ends of Danbury. I would like to see something more centralized if possible. I can't sit here and tell you that I have sites selected, and I've been thinking about it. One possible thing that I thought of just recently was we have a park on Rowan Street, kind of centrally located. There's a playground already there. It's a flat piece of property. A possible candidate. And beyond that, I'll turn it over to you if you have any suggestions for properties. That's probably the biggest obstacle, coming up with a piece of land that will suit our needs. And I agree with most of everything Joe said to start, that you can start this once you identify it, you can design it, and do it over a period of years. You need the fencing. You should separate large dogs from small dogs. You need water and
Shade.
well, I don't even know about shade.
Benches.
Shade.
Benches.
Okay. So that puts a little damper then on Rowan Street, because there's not a lot of shade there.
Mr. Alpern, do you have any knowledge you would like to add?
Other than in here, no. I really doubt you're going to find a site that's perfect in every way. So you're going to have to think about priorities, and just go take a look and see what looks best. Dreiska just sits there, and it's there is a deed restriction on that. Although I'm not sure, but I think it's more like an open space deed restriction. Round Street is certainly centrally located. I wouldn't go to Terrywell. They'll probably scream at you. It's not in their master plan. And they have a concern, which I think would apply to all of them, would be who's going to manage it. Is it going to be the city? Yeah, and his large staff. Is it going to be the city, or is it going to be a community organization, which might do it?
Well, that was actually something I did speak to Robin Edwards about, was because we will need donations. we want organizations to begin donating once we get a site selected, and we were discussing that to develop a committee or something, and maybe one of the members of the committee will handle the money, so we're not handling money and having to set up a whole different authority of money handling, and so we did discuss that. Mr. Iadarola, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing about Kenosha. Due to the fact that we do flood skimming on Kenosha Lake, in addition to the fact that we have wells that draw a substantial amount of water at periods of time, and looking at the opportunity of putting additional wells at that facility, that entire park is considered reservoir property. When it's considered reservoir property, anything that you do to it that further enhances its recreational use or potentially could deteriorate the quality of the features of the property, that could deteriorate the quality of the water, would have to be all go on through DEP and Department of Public Health. There has to be a change of use. I just want to tell you, we started the process of getting the spray park approved 3 years ago. We still don't have a resolution. Now, this is water that goes up in the air, comes down on a concrete pad, goes right into our sewer system. It never leaves that general area, but it is considered an enhancement of further potential deterioration of the buffer that protects the reservoir property. So we've been in negotiation with the DEP for almost 3 years about that parcel now. So I just, that's what we're facing with anything that you do pertaining to a change of use from reservoir property. And every time that you go in with a change of use, although you're not showing or you can prove that there isn't a further deterioration, it opens up the door for them to further limit your activities, install barriers, buffers, so your simple little park could end up being a major project. So I just want to put that on the record. Some of the barriers or some of the issues that we're talking about creating for a dog park, I don't see them as big ticketed items. I mean, fencing is obviously expensive, and chain link fence is not cheap, but other than that, I just don't see anything else as a big ticketed item.
Right.
As long as I don't have to create any parking is available. If there's, if there has to be an opportunity for somebody to fill up a container for water, most of our parks have that opportunity. So, I just don't see it a big cost item. As Public Works, as long as it's not our money being put in there, we'll help you. So, okay?
We're doing our best. Councilwoman DiMichi is here. Councilman Seabury.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question for Dennis. The property we just acquired, almost in New York State, has open space. I can't think of the name of the place.
Farrington.
It's Farrington
Okay.
property.
Would that be something?
I don't think so. Well, one thing, it's on the very edge of town.
It just came to mind.
It's
as
wooded, predominantly wooded. There are a couple of residences on it, which we are now leasing. We're a leaseholder. But it's primarily, well, almost entirely wooded.
It's hilly too. It's not.
It is hilly, yeah. I don't think so. I thought of that.
I think I'd throw it out.
I thought of it too. I mean, we're going to have a meeting next week to discuss, what needs to be done just to open that property to the public. And we're going to have to probably establish some parking to start with. So I don't see, when I've been on the property, I don't see really a lot of opportunity there.
I didn't know, we were just there that one day, excuse me, and a couple of us went for a little bit of a walk, and I didn't recall whether or not in a different direction, perhaps there was a flattened area where he might be able to use it. All right.
Do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, to Mr. Kaplanis,
Councilman.
there's a, I believe the city owns it, across from the new Veterans Hall in Rogers Park, where the trampolines used to be. Is that all total swamp at all times, or? We're Glen Apartments,
Yeah.
and then there's an open lot, and then we go into where the tennis, to the rear of the tennis courts, actually. There's a piece of property in there that I believe the city owns, I might be wrong.
Well, I thought that was all occupied with the volleyball courts.
No, it would be to the rear of the volleyball courts.
So that's kind of wooded then.
Yeah, you have the brook on the other side of the brook.
I don't know how much of what's back there belongs to us.
Might be a spot you might want to take a look at.
You know, access would go through what to get there? How would you-
Rogers Park.
No, but from where in Rogers Park?
Well, you could, where the new field that we put in?
Yeah.
Across the street there, or in that whole area where they park. They have the soccer games, wherever. There's plenty of parking there.
Well, well, it depends on when you go.
Depends on when you go.
To be honest with you, I mean, I've thought about Rogers Park. I think that there is so much going on down there, the majority of the time, that to add something like that there would just create the congestion. And, you know, when things are going full bore on the weekends especially, there's no place to park as it is. I mean, it would just add to the chaos. It would add to the chaos that goes on down there.
Councilman Net.
Question to Nick. I know New Fairfield, and I heard this, I haven't seen it, New Fairfield put theirs close to their high school, I believe. Is that something, are all the fields at Danbury High utilized for sports?
For the most part.
So when you pull in those fields that are on the right there, they're still utilizing them?
You have 2 baseball fields, 2 softball fields, and, you know, they are utilized, they're utilized heavily during the school year, and then in the summertime, we're using them for recreational activities.
Councilman Seaver.
If I might just follow up with Jack here. How about as you look at the high school from the front of the building, and you have the teacher parking there, and then beyond that, there's a space there that's grassed before you get to the residential homes.
On the right-hand side?
If
You're
you're
looking at it from the front of school now, Clapper Ridge.
Yeah, if you're looking at the high school, the front of school, I'm sorry, I wasn't that clear, and you go from the building, from the auditorium to the teacher's parking lot, and then as you start to go out to get the road, there's an area of grass there. I should think certainly enough that would
How
take
big do you
care.
think it is, Frank?
We've had 100 kids out there.
Because I'm thinking this thing needs at least 3 to 4 acres if we're to do it right. Because by the time you have a large dog park and a small dog park, you need probably at least that much property.
Then I'm not thinking of that.
I don't think that's
Parks I've
happening.
been to
Yeah.
much smaller than that.
Nick, is there anything that matters?
I mean, if you take, the only, you know, spot there is between the hall and the pavilion, which was once going to be a parking lot. Personally, I'm glad they haven't paved it, because when people rent the pavilion, they like to be able to go out there, you know, and play kickball or, you know, badminton or something. So I don't know that I really would like to take that away for a dog park. Because anytime people rent the hall, the pavilion, they're asking, well, you know, can we use the fields, which primarily are used for softball games. So we tell them you can use that grassy spot between the pavilion and the hall.
Yes, Mr. Cavan.
Madam Chair, thank you. Aside from parcel location, I just want to make sure before we keep going through all this, through Corporation Council, Robin, we can draft a regulation for a park so the dogs can be off-leash outside of the city ordinance? Without
Yes.
a lot of difficulty?
Yes, sir. I mean, if you get to that point, we could certainly address that. You know, since this is in its early stages, it would, you know, we'd have to look at the initial ordinances that are there now, as you point out, see if any amendments need to be made to them, or if we need to sort of break off and adopt a separate ordinance for the dog park. I have seen, I've done a little research myself, and I have seen one from another town where they have done it that way. Actually, I think it was Stratford. So sure, that's something that can be taken care of. Yes, that's definitely possible.
Along those lines, if we just follow what I think we're all generally saying, Mr. Darrow, myself, and Mr. Shudo, that a site selection is really key, and maybe we could leave here tonight asking the Director of Public Works and the Director of Parks and Director of Planning to talk and bring some suggestions back to the committee. So then you can just reconvene with some suggestions and then expand it from there.
And committee, feel free to travel around to our parks
Right.
and develop your own opinions. I mean, I'm not being smart, I just think it's wise for everybody would take a look and see what comes to mind.
I also want to ask, Robin, do you have anything else you want to add? Because I was just about to ask you similar questions.
Yes, yeah, I mean, at this point, we did some very early research. I contacted our risk manager and asked him to speak with our insurance carrier to see what kind of issues would be involved. And, their initial response was, many of the members, Kermers, our insurance carrier, have successfully established dog parks that are used by their citizens. And the key, as everyone here has correctly pointed out, is it in a suitable area where, there's not a potential danger or worry to citizens who might be going there. They're suggesting away from playgrounds or schools. That's what their suggestion was. And, of course, the enforcement of the park rules. And, there's a lot of information out there. I have some information that they forwarded to me. And, you want to have rules that adequately cover the issues that are attendant to dog parks. You don't want aggressive dogs there. You want dogs that are vaccinated. You want owners to obey the rules. It sort of is a self-policing thing. I mean, the literature that I've seen says they're not actively supervised generally by people like any other park. So, it is a self-policing thing. But certainly from our standpoint, if you get to that point, or if and when it gets to that point, we would work with you to help you draft whatever rules are appropriate and make sure that those things are included in the ordinance. And of course, it would need further assessment by the risk department and having them speak with the insurance carrier, because certainly there's risks that are attendant to that, like anything. There's always a possibility that you're going to get someone there that's not following the rules, or there's a potential for difficulties with their animal, that type of thing. So that's really, what I would add at this point. And I'm happy to share with anyone who would like it. I'm happy to get you a copy of the information that I have on this. So I can give it to the committee chair, and I'm happy to give it to the members of the committee if they'd like it to.
Okay, thank you.
I would suggest before we get too concerned about dangers, that we talk to Richfield and talk to Milford and others. They may be more apparent than real, they may not
Exactly. And
really amount to much, so that it doesn't become a big stumbling block that we are overly concerned.
right. And we will absolutely work.
I mean,
with the
obviously,
committee
any
to-
park
yeah.
with small children
Exactly.
carries with it risks.
Yeah.
Not everyone
Any-
follows all the rules in all the parks as it is, but
Anywhere.
from the conversations that I've had with people that have, inquired, everyone, not everyone, but most of those people will police themselves or police others because, they want to have it, they know that it's a good thing for their pets. And so if you find people that come in and don't, follow the letter of the law, they will probably be after that. So I don't think that policing is going to be a big concern.
Councilwoman Demichi, you had your hand up.
Well, that was sort of my question. Is there a liability issue for the city if there is a dog fight or if someone gets bit?
Well, that's
Could
something that
could the city be sued for that?
Sure. I mean, there's a risk, as Dennis pointed out, even, with people being harmed in parks that aren't even dog parks, just parks for kids. And, that's always a risk, which is why we check with our insurance carrier and make sure that there's the appropriate coverage and address that situation to the best of our ability and the rules that are adopted. But, in any
Just thinking
situation,
that
there's a
the
risk.
might be a little higher when animals are involved versus children.
Well, one of the things that they, in the reading that I had, keep small children away, keep them out of there,
Yeah,
so you don't run that risk.
you have to follow common sense.
This is
you
a
know,
park for the
certainly,
dog,
like
not
with
for the
anything.
kids.
Yeah, but sure, there's a risk with everything, and that's why I checked immediately with the risk manager and asked him to check with our insurance carrier, and they did send us back this information. I'm happy to share it with you, just on general information about dog parks, and you know, it's important to have rules that are followed.
Councilman Nero.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I said I wasn't going to say anything else, but in listening again to what Councilman Cabo had to say, I'm hearing a lot of great comments here. I'm still going back to what I said in the very beginning of the meeting, but I'm hearing if we had a punch list and a central person to do dialogue with, maybe that's Nick, I don't know who that is. But I'm seeing this, and these may be reversed, I'm saying, here are the things that we think, these are the places that would be great dog parks. And then I'm saying, here are the things that make great dog parks. And I'm saying, how do we blend these two to figure out what the best dog park site and amount of land is going to be? But I'm saying to myself, how do I boil all of this down? You know, I'm not terribly sure that I want to do this, but I'm thinking somebody could go through this and come up with, you know, and we stay in dialogue with that. You know, there's a person, and maybe I send my ideas and thoughts to Nick, and he digests them along with Joe's and Greg's and everybody else's, and then he shoots that back and says, here's where we are. So in other words, in my mind, I'd like to see the homework get done before we come back, so that then we can sit down and say, okay, we look at this and we say, okay, well, Antonio says for us to fence this in, this property's going to cost us, winging this is going to cost us $70,000, and we need water here, and we need trees here, and we need it. And you're going to sit back and say, well, the taxpayers at Danbury for 81 dogs are not going to, and I don't know what the number is, so if anybody sees this, I don't know how many dogs are on Danbury. But the point is, you know, you got to weigh how many taxpayers are going to be burdened with how many dog owners there are. And I'm not saying that that's a reason not to do that. I'm just saying that's something that's got to be, that thought has to be given to it. But I go back to the very first thing again that Councilman Cabo brought up, is let's first find a place. And then let's see if Antonio thinks it's feasible to put this together the way a good dog park that maybe Nick gathers all the information on and says, this is the way the right dog park in Danbury should look like. We have a world-class dog park. I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is that's kind of the direction that we need to go in. But again, I'd love to see the homework first, because since I've been going to ad hoc meetings, I walk into ad hoc meetings, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but I walk in, I get a document like this, and in 3 minutes, I'm supposed to know what somebody else has spent hours and hours figuring out. And I'm not that sharp. You know, I'm just not not that sharp. That's not going to happen. So if I have
Neither's
time.
Dennis, so don't worry.
Thank you. You can take that out of there.
Well, you had me fooled. But anyway, so that's my point, and I thank you, Madam Chairman, for letting me say.
Councilman Cabo.
Thank
Keep
you.
it in the
This will be
middle.
this will be the last time for me. I just wanted to make a comment to Mrs. Edwards' comment and Mrs. DiGiorgio's about the liability and the patrolling, and I frequent both Southbury and Ridgefield Dog Park, and people do a marvelous job of policing their own dog parks. They're very passionate about their dog park. They're very passionate about them being safe, and if there's a problem, people rally together and they ask the person with an aggressive dog to please leave, and it's usually done very well. It's usually handled very professionally and in a very adult manner. I'm very impressed by that. And the second part of that is if the committee chooses to ask Mr. Alper and Mr. Cabanas and Mr. Iadarola to search properties and come back with a possible suggestion, I will tell you that I travel to Southbury and I travel to Ridgefield. So to travel within Danbury, depending on where it is not a big issue. Because it's within Danbury, and I'm not traveling to Southbury, and I'm not traveling to Ridgefield. So distance within Danbury might not be as big of an issue as you think it might be if we go that route, because I meet people in both Southbury and in Ridgefield from Danbury on a regular basis. So just throwing that out there. It's good.
Mr. Kaplanis, do you want to be our go-to
Nope.
guy?
Yeah,
Well, it seems like Park and Rec, it
No,
would,
that's
it
fine.
would make
No, I
sense
have no
to,
problem.
to ask you to do that.
Just,
Yes.
what's important in really kind of selecting the site, we talked about most of them, but size is critical, because that's gonna really
Sure.
like either make an opportunity for us or not. In just scanning this document, I don't know who gave this document to Dennis, I think this is a really nice dog park manual.
Yep.
Um,
Red many.
It's amazing what you find on the internet. I seen anything between 1 acre and 2 acres, 1.3 acres, 1.5 acres. So if you send us off saying that we think as a minimum it has to be 1 acre and 2 acres would be sweet, but we have those parameters to work in, I think that's gonna help us kind of
I'm
be more
gonna defer
effective.
to Mr. Cavo on that one,
Well, I
because
would
you've
think
seen
that-
many other dog parks,
And
seen a
depending-
couple.
I mean, Southbury's huge. I think Ridgefield's adequate for Ridgefield. I would say Danbury would at least need a minimum of 2 acres for the amount of people and licensed dogs that are in Danbury. Would need at least 2 acres.
All right, so we'll use that as, I mean, if it's 1.8, 1.9
Right,
acres.
that's, yeah.
But we'll use that as a threshold for evaluating park areas.
And a comment was made before about keeping away from parks and schools. Are schools off the table here? Is that, or not?
I would think that
We
you wouldn't
mentioned
want
the
it
high
around
school.
schools. Me personally, I would think you wouldn't want it around, an area where it's near children or near activities where children are, because you don't need a child sticking their fingers through a fence at a dog that may be okay with their owner, but may not be okay with that child. So I don't think you want to invite that type of opportunity. Both Southbury and Ridgefield are, Ridgefield has a ballpark across the parking lot from it, but it's far enough across from the lot that you don't have to worry about it, so.
It's the Bark Park is the name of that one. And that's another thing, we gotta come up with a real clever name. We can't let New Milford have
Well, I thought
Campbell
maybe we could
will
have a
fight.
contest in Denver.
We do.
And let people
Right.
name and then
And a logo.
have a committee decide who the winner is.
There you go.
They get a free box of dog biscuits.
Dog cookies.
Or cookies, yes. Whichever comes first.
Do we have any other questions, comments, ideas?
As you're going around looking at all and evaluating all of your parks, you could make a list of what you think are important. It's size, access, are there any streams or things you're going to be concerned about, opportunity for parking, how close are you to residential neighborhoods, how people will complain, those kinds of things. And then it gives you in the end, something that you compare them with, one to another.
Well, I expect that, everyone that rides around Danbury now for the next week is gonna see a spot, send me an email and say, what about there?
Freddie's got a big backyard.
What about the property that Union Carbide gave us off of exit 2 there?
That property's
You
going
mean the
away.
new shopping center?
Yeah, but has it been, is
It's
it
pretty
going
much-
to? It's been
I keep hearing that it will happen.
Hot and cold. Blows hot and cold.
I know it's been empty for a long time.
I mean, I'm not in a hurry to see that go away because they're gonna take away a field that we utilize for some of the programs, so the longer it takes, the better.
Okay, so I
And
guess
there is-
everybody needs to go and look for land.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion? to
We
go
do
look for
need a
dog
motion.
I am not too
Motion to
sure.
adjourn or motion?
Identify.
Motion to look for a park, a motion to identify.
Motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
Motion, make the motion.
I'll make a motion
There
to
you go.
continue to look, and that's all I'm making a motion for, is to continue to look for property that would be a viable dog park. Is that good enough, or do I need to
And
go?
just to basically continue the committee, because the
Continue the
committee's
committee.
the whole
I'll
shebang.
second
And I will be-
your brilliant motion.
Thank you very much.
Any discussion on the motion?
No, we won't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all of their input. Now the work begins.
Fuck the airport.
Should it get-